But football is very much back because John Giles is back on a Thursday evening. How are you?
I'm all right, Nathan.
Good summer?
Very good, yeah.
Good golf?
A little bit. More watching football again.
More
Nathan,
watching football, yeah.
I mean, the ladies and all the
Women's World Cup, yeah. You watched a bit of it?
Yeah, I watched quite a bit of it, yeah. It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And watching Preseason? People watch Preseason friendlies now.
Yeah.
Like they're all shown live.
Oh, they're shown live, yeah. I didn't watch that many friendly matches. I mean, a lot of them were abroad and...
Do you read anything into what happens in a pre-season friendly? Like a lot of clubs, like Liverpool supporters were quite worried heading into the Community Shield because the results hadn't been good in pre-season, even though they didn't have Salah, Firmino, Mane.
No. Well, look, my experience of pre-season, Nathan, because I do a few pre-seasons, and sometimes you'd have really good results, sometimes not so good results, and never made any difference, to be quite honest.
Totally irrelevant when you
I remember having great friendly matches, won all of them. First match, beaten 3-0. It doesn't, it's practice.
It doesn't affect you mentally as a player that things aren't going right here?
It's not, you see, they're friendly matches, no matter where you're looking, they're friendly matches. So it is a build-up and a preparation for the start of the season. That's what you're doing in friendly matches. So your results could be great. And I said, I played in the clubs that sometimes the great results and the first match, you got it right hiding. They weren't significant. It doesn't really tell you anything, Nathan. You'll see now at the start of this week, there'll be clubs that have been on tour and they've got great results. There'll be bad results. And it totally changes. It's preparation.
We had Conor Hourhan on the show this morning. He's going to be playing with Aston Villa. And I was talking to Shane Duffy last week, and they were both saying they'd a three-week break was their entire off-season.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing. There's no opportunity really to lose the run of themselves. They're coming back in pre-season pretty much in the exact same shape. That feels like it's one of the big changes over the last 20, 30 years.
Definitely. Well, there's more. Well, you see the tours now. There's a lot of money in it for the big clubs, particularly. I mean, you heard Mourinho at Manchester United. Well, you know, they were Manchester City. Where Manchester City, Australia, China, somewhere. It's not the ideal situation. That's all about money, Nathan. Actually, again, my experience with Don Revie, we used to stay local.
Just in and around Yorkshire?
It was at Bradford and Friend. It's their only preparation to get fit for the big match. And the last thing you want in pre-season is travelling. One of the things that make you most tired is travelling. And you see them going to China and they're going here, they're going there, they're going everywhere. The climate can be very, very hot. These are not ideal preparations. The pre-season is preparation for the start of the season. This is not good preparation.
Travelling halfway around the world.
Halfway around the world. You're playing in these pitches, you're playing in the heat, you're playing in that. What you got to do, and travel is like what you need is to be playing locally. That you do your training. Like I'm talking about our case when I was at West Brom, we'd play at Crewe or somewhere. Never travelled. Keep away from the travel. But the money's so big now, Nathan, that they're getting huge money for it.
And I guess it levels itself out because actually all the teams are doing it. It's not just one or two of them, so they're all in a very similar position. It
doesn't level them out in the highway, in the low way, to be quite honest. But like the Charity Shield is a different thing altogether because it is a competitive match, despite the fact that the players are really getting fit as well. So you can't tell that much by it. But what's happened really badly over the last few years, the competitions, like, you got the lads playing in the African Cup, South American Cup, and then some of the English players playing in the new competition. So, like, for the authorities and these associations, it's no bother to them to run a competition. They're not paying the players, and they're bringing in loads of money. So what's happened in the last couple of years with us? We got the European Championships, then you got the World Cup, and we had a rest in between. So they put another competition in. Like, if they had a chance, they'd put another competition in again. And it's definitely not good for the players. You need a break. Now, I think you need at least 5 weeks in the close season.
Yeah, it is remarkable to think it's only a 3-week break at the end of such a pressurised season. And like, you'd wonder how much fitness work players actually need to do then when they go back in pre-season, because there's so many tests and
they don't need an awful lot of fitness to get back in again. But you need the rest for your body to recover. Then to train for the 4 weeks in a really, really hard way to get your body back again. Because although you don't need so much training to be as fit as you were at the end of the season, but you're not getting the rest. Your body's not getting the rest now, and your body needs the rest to recover. And then you need to get back into shape again. And the way
mentally as well, just to switch off.
Totally. You know, it's like you see the top teams there, or teams are in relegation trouble. This is very, very difficult situation. And then you need a break mentally, physically to get back. And then you're going to your pre-season training to build back to the fitness that you had. But the body, in my opinion, needs that particular break.
What sort of condition used you go back into in pre-season? Would you let loose in the off-season? Would you go relax, enjoy yourself and...
Well, it depends
forget about being a professional footballer?
Well, certainly you forget about it. I used to go back to Wexford. I used to have a little place in Wexford for the holidays, and it was so peaceful. It was absolutely brilliant. And I'd play a good bit of golf. Golf keeps you reasonably okay. But look, see, in the old days of my time, you used to get a 3 or 4 month break. You used to have the cricket season. Lads would come back, some of them come back 2 stone overweight.
Right. So you mightn't train for a couple of months?
Yeah, or longer. Because the last match of the season in the old days, and it was during my time, the early days, the cup final was the last match of the season. And you were back again in September.
Right, so you'd have May, June, July, August pretty much
off. And what used to happen, actually, there's lads, there was great cricketers and great footballers could play both. Test cricket, playing this, for England. In both, a lad called Dennis Compton.
Yeah.
Played for Arsenal, played for England. Top players.
So a lot of the professional footballers during the summer would go and play cricket at a pretty high level.
Yeah, because they had the time to do it. You had 3 or 4 months off at that particular time. See, in the old days, there was no European competitions, no friendly, no competitive World Cup, of course, every 4 years. But there was no Euro Championships or...
Easy for young lads to lose the run of themselves then, and
well, lads used to come back,
go on the lash for a month and think I'll be grand, but then you don't stop.
A lot of lads, I remember, a lot of people would come back in good shape. No, I was the only young fella at Manchester United at that time, but a lot of lads would come back and could be 2 stone overweight, and
it'd just be the norm.
Well, a lot did it, a lot didn't do it. Like in my time, it got shorter and shorter, but we used to get a good rest. Like we got 6 weeks, 7 weeks off. And I'm talking my own point.
Did you feel you needed that? Whatever about the physical side of it, did you need that mentally to go off to Wexford and just not think about football, not think about what's going to happen on Saturday, your life not be defined by that result on a Saturday afternoon?
You needed that, Nathan, because when you're in the run-in, I was very lucky at Leeds because we were in the run-in most things, but it's like you have to live that. This match, it's not that you just put your gear on and go out and play. So you need to be geared up for it. And then you need the break. You need it physically, mentally to get away from it. And I think that's the worry now for the lads coming in, say the Liverpool lads, right? And the Manchester City lads who have played. Because how are they going to start? It's going to be interesting to see how they start, Nathan. Because in my experience, when you're finishing the season, say 1969, we were neck and neck with Liverpool for last 10 matches. That's really, you reach a certain level where you have to do it, right? Then you get the break in the close season. Then you start in the season. You don't have that go because there's 40 matches to go. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be interested to see how City and Liverpool actually start the season. In my experience, when we won it with Leeds, we didn't start very well.
Right.
The next season, because you have to build up to the impetus, if that's the right word, and the mental approach that you had in those matches when you were going to win the league. And you assume, well, we'll do it naturally. But you can't. This doesn't happen naturally. You have to be in that position. The season starts very quickly again, and you need to get that mentality back. It's not easy to do.
Last year was obviously a record-breaking season in terms of points totals then for Manchester City and Liverpool getting to 97 points and not being able to win the title and needing that relentless start and being able to continue it and just simply not being able to slip up. From what you saw of the Community Shield then, and I don't know how much you read into what you saw between Liverpool and Manchester City, did they both look like they were at a level that they know they need to start fast? Because
I don't think so. I thought the match was enjoyable. I didn't think either team were at their best.
Right.
Because you can't turn it on, Nathan. You have to be in the position like Manchester City were in. They knew they had to win those matches. Liverpool knew they had to win those matches. So you're at a certain level physically and mentally. You can't pretend.
It's important.
That it's important. You have to be in that position. I'm only going on my own experience from, and that's why you needed the rest at the end of it, because you didn't realise how tired you were till it finished. But to switch it on again, you don't switch it on enough. Say, okay, they say you have to be in the actual position. And so when you're starting the season again, as we all know, like in my day it was 42 matches. We've got 42 matches to go, so you don't have that urgency that the last 10 matches that you had to win. it's very hard to pick it up. That's what I found. Now maybe the lads are different now, but the Charity Shield I don't think was a guide to what never was, Nathan. To be quite honest, you know, it's a
glorified friendly.
It is a glorified friendly. I mean, the people say it's one of the major competitions. How can it be a major competition when you play one match and you win it? You know,
half your players aren't available.
I can see it from the managers for their putting it on the record for them like another major competition. It's like the European Championship or South America and all that.
Yeah.
It's a one-off, Nathan. But everybody says it's a major competition, particularly managers. But in my day, it was never even regarded as a major competition. It's the Charity Shield, and it was a good opener if you were in it. And then they made it better because they brought it to Wembley. Like we won the Charity Shield, I think, in 1969, but we didn't play at Wembley.
Where was it?
We played at Leeds because the league champions played the cup winners. Then they switched it to Wembley, which made it more glamorous,
more of an occasion,
and more like a major competition.
They try and replicate the FA Cup and the managers walk out in front. Yeah. Let's talk about deadline day because there's a whole host of deals going through, and we're talking about Liverpool and Manchester City, and they're expected to be the two main contenders again. Liverpool haven't done anything. They brought in Harvey Elliott from Fulham, who's the youngest player to play in the Premier League. They brought in a backup keeper. They've let go of some of the fringe players. It's often felt that Alex Ferguson liked to push on from a position of strength, that when you've done well, that's when you go all in. Liverpool haven't done that. Are you surprised that Klopp hasn't gone and invested heavily and tried to kick on to another level, or do you think he's looked at that group and thought, as a man manager, I can bring this group on to where they need to be?
I wasn't surprised they didn't buy, and I don't think there's anything in the team, Nathan, that you could say they definitely need somebody there. And he has spent a fair bit of money in the last 2 years anyway. I think in Fergie's case, it was, obviously he felt he could improve it. And some managers would say at Liverpool, well, they could have bought another. There's no end to that. But I'd say the way Liverpool are run, I don't think that he would be encouraged to spend a lot more money again. I think their attitude would be, look, we spent a fair bit, we've got a good young squad, and we'll go the way we're going.
There had been rumours that during pre-season, when Liverpool fans were maybe looking for a story, that Virgil van Dijk wasn't particularly happy about the lack of arrivals, and there was a few words between himself and Jurgen Klopp during one of the pre-season friendlies. From a player's point of view, do you not want to see fresh faces coming in, signs that the club are investing continuously?
Not necessarily, Nathan. And I don't think it's Van Dijk's position or anybody else's position as a player to be giving the manager his views on that. That's up to the manager to do it, and the club's policy. I mean, it's not as if they were struggling against relegation and they needed to improve players. I mean, they won the Champions League with the players that they have. A couple of players coming back from injury. A couple of players that they bought during the year. They're quite a strong squad, and they've spent quite a lot of money in the last 2 years. I think from Manchester City's point of view, it's a different thing. Again, I think if I'd been Manchester, I'd have broke the bank for Maguire, for example. But I think Manchester City are in a peculiar position because they're under pressure from the inquiries that they're having about spending money. I think they didn't want to break that's my take on it. They didn't want to break the record again because of the position they're in with UEFA, or however the situation.
They have obviously done a couple of deals. One today, they brought in João Cancelo from Juventus, the right back, and they got rid of Danilo going the other way. So again, that probably keeps financial fair play a certain way.
Yes.
So the big investment was on Rodri from Atletico Madrid.
Yes.
If it was then a choice almost for Pep Guardiola, if there was one big investment, whether it was centre half back up or somebody to fill that Fernandinho role and sort of mould him as a new Fernandinho over the next 12 to 18 months, did he make the right choice in going with the centre midfielder ahead of the centre back?
It was his choice, and I would have done it the other way. I would have bought Maguire. But there again, Maguire was more expensive. This is what I think there's a little bit of politics going on there. Like he's not breaking the record to buy Rodri. Rodri is who looks
the midfielder,
yeah, he looks a good player. He's not breaking it's a fair bit of money, but he's not breaking the record to do it. If he goes for Maguire, he's breaking the record to do it. I know it's only another 20 odd million, but I think you might see Ronaldinho Fernandinho playing at the back.
Okay, which they tried at times last season.
Well, he could do that. I think I think Rodri is a better midfield player than Fernandinho. To be quite, he's certainly more. Look, I only saw him last week. He's more skilled and building up play rather than defensive. I think he has that Fernandinho didn't have.
They obviously lost Vincent Kompany and all that goes with Vincent Kompany and his leadership qualities. So they're left with Aymeric Laporte, who was in the team of the season last year, John Stones, who's in and out and nobody ever fully knows what the level of trust there is, and Nicolas Otamendi was out last season, having been excellent the season before. So they're down one centre-back, and maybe Fernandinho is that replacement. Is that an area where you're looking at Manchester City as a potential weakness? Because everything I've been hearing is that Manchester City are going to stroll the title this season.
I don't believe that. I would make Liverpool slightly favourites, actually.
Ahead of Manchester City?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, they didn't get Maguire, and Kompany's gone. Kompany was huge for it. Kompany was the best player by a mile defender for Manchester City. He hasn't been replaced. Maguire would have been the ideal replacement. They haven't done it. So they like defensively, you mentioned the players defensively. Kompany actually helped them win the league. He played the last 5 or 6 matches on the bounce. He was by far and away the best defender City have had. They haven't replaced him. Liverpool don't have that problem with Van Dijk and their defenders. Actually, they were quite good. They're quite bad. I think City, Liverpool are a younger team. You got David Silva, who's been a terrific player. Is he going to do it? Fernandinho, is he going to do it? At the back, the players that you mentioned at the back haven't been good. For Manchester's Company's been the best of them. They haven't improved in that position, Nathan. So I would make Liverpool, with the squad they have, slightly favourites. I think if they'd signed Maguire, I definitely probably would have said, well, even Steven, or maybe Man City slightly in front. But I don't see that now.
The mentality involved in winning 3 Premier League titles in a row, only Manchester United have done it since it turned to the Premier League. Is that an issue, do you think, for Manchester City? Desire? Is there going to be a focus on the Champions League this year ahead of the Premier League, or have they just got the squad depth that actually they can again contest in every front?
I don't think they'll focus on the Champions League. I think it'd be silly to focus on the Champions League. The Champions League is a competition where there's X amount of matches in it, Nathan, and the Premiership is week in, week out, week in and week out. And I think that's where the real value, or the real how to evaluate a team is the Premiership rather than the Champions League, to be quite honest.
Because you can look at last season and think they went toe-to-toe with Tottenham. One decision in the final minute of injury time decides their entire season in the Champions League.
Yeah, but you see, even with Spurs, I mean, Spurs must have lost at least 5 matches in the Champions League. Must have lost at least 5. They couldn't afford to do that in the Premiership. That's week in and week in and week out is that's the consistency that you need. I mean, you used to be saying in my team, anybody could win the FA Cup, for example. You didn't have to be the top team in those days. You could get a good run at it. But the league was the week in, week out. That's your consistency, that's your form, and it shows it. Like in Spurs' case, even in the Champions League last year, Liverpool lost more matches in the Champions League than they did in the Premiership.
Yeah. And
still won it. Because it is a cup competition. So I don't think City will say, well, we're going to concentrate on the Champions League. No, I don't think you can afford to do that, to be quite honest.
I'm surprised to hear you say that you have Liverpool as favourites, not just because the general consensus is Manchester City, but like a lot of your comments from last season that, Liverpool were a one-trick pony, but it was a very good trick, and that maybe if they didn't have that high-energy style of play, they didn't have a whole lot else. And they haven't actually changed any personnel. There's nobody new in there.
Well, they've changed. Well, in the last couple of years, they brought Van Dijk in. They brought a couple of midfield players in. They've spent a fair bit of money in the team. And I didn't mean to be disrespectful to the one-trick pony. I actually said, what you left out, but it's a very, very good trick.
Very true.
And they haven't stopped doing that. I mean, there was times that they played. I mean, look, last week, even in the what was then the
Community Shield.
Community Shield. I mean, their defending was dreadful. I mean, City didn't defend very well either, but if you look at the first goal, they're running out and doing certain things. But you have to take the overall thing with Klopp. What he has gone is that go, which they did, and did extremely well. They did win the Champions League. I would be surprised if they didn't do the same again this year. I don't think it's perfect all the time. There was a period during the league where they went to Manchester United and tactically it wasn't very good. They did slip up. Don't forget, they were 7 points in front of Manchester City with a home match against them. You know what I mean? So they did slip up in certain areas, but overall, very, very well done to go and win the Champions League and do what they did. And I think the team is young enough to get better. I don't think the Manchester City team is young enough to get better, to be quite honest. And the loss of company for those matches, I think, is a huge loss. They haven't replaced that at the back, Nathan. They've always been, a bit dodgy at the back. And there's no doubt that it was no coincidence that in the running, when they really, really needed to do the stuff,
Company went back to Company again.
Company played they must have played about 7 or 8 matches, mustn't he, on the trot, which he hadn't done before. You just had to have him in. He's gone now. So it's only a guessing game. That's my opinion. I think there's possibility for Liverpool to get a lot better. I don't think there's a lot in Manchester City to get better than they did, which is very good. But the two of them are way ahead of anybody else that we can see at the moment.
Yeah.
Manchester United still haven't got sorted out.
We'll talk about Manchester United then, because look, the simple aim, I would imagine, of every club during a transfer window is to finish it in a better position than you started it. From Manchester United's point of view, and unless something dramatic happens this evening and they sign somebody completely out of the blue, they will have sold Romelu Lukaku to Inter Milan. Ander Herrera will have left to go to Paris Saint-Germain. Antonio Valencia has left the club as well, a very experienced player and the club captain. And they brought in Harry Maguire on that huge fee.
Yep.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka, £50 million as a right back, I think impressed a lot of people at Palace last season. And Daniel James as well, an exciting young player. Are they in a better position now? Is that a stronger squad now than the one that finished last season?
You would think so on paper, Nathan. I think the big problem is when Ferguson was there, obviously it took him a few years, but Ferguson had total control of everything. He had the transfer window done and finished 2 or 3. It's probably the most important part of the year. Who you bring in, who you go out. Now Ferguson, as we know, did that and did it brilliantly. Where was Solskjaer in the summer? Never got a mention. He was on his holidays, and all he could hear about was Woodward.
Yeah.
He's doing this or he's doing that. Harry Maguire's come in. There's your mention, come in. I didn't see Solskjaer mentioned. So is he in charge of it? This is the big thing at Manchester. What they need is somebody.
Who's making the decisions?
Who's making the decisions? Who's going to control it? Who's going to lead them? Right? Solskjaer's not doing it at the moment. That's for sure. Because he wasn't there. He wasn't even there when they were talking about all the signings and all the various things were made, where the big decisions were being made. He should have been there making those decisions, like Ferguson did. So he's been told, like, this is what we're getting you, this is what we're doing, right? And he's on about Pogba, like he was on about Pogba last year. I've never had any trouble with Pogba. He's been a great lad. He does this and he does that. But we know that's not true, right? So what's Solskjaer's position at the club? We know what Ferguson's was at the time. Total dictator, knew what he wanted, got it in, got it finished. They're still saying that...
The position's gone now. That role of the dictator at Manchester United, that's never coming back.
Well, it would come back if they employed the right manager. I don't think Solskjaer is capable of doing that. I think he was good for the job that he did when he first came in. But what they need is somebody, I think they need somebody like a Conte, for example, to come in. A young Ferguson, who are not there. That's what they need, right? Because you can talk about all the signings they made and this and that and they're going to do that. Have they got a leader? Is Solskjaer going to be able to lead those particular players? I would doubt that very, very much. So, like, you can start...
Why do you think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is saying that about Paul Pogba then?
I don't know. Maybe he believes it. That he's a terrific lad and he's a good player. He hasn't caused me any problems. And well, what you read in the paper, big problems, because he's been in the paper saying he wanted to go. He didn't want to go on tour. He finished up going on tour. The way he played towards the end of last season was dreadful, and he more than hinted he wanted to go to Real Madrid. More than hinted that. So he's doing the club a lot of harm. So if Solskjaer can't see that, and he's the manager, and he said, no, he's a great lad, he hasn't given me any trouble, he's in cuckoo land. You go back to Ferguson again. Could you imagine Ferguson dealing with Pogba the way Pogba's behaved himself?
Well, he did deal with him.
Yeah, he got him out. Yeah, when he was a young fella. And that hasn't changed. So, like, you can talk about all the ins and outs of Manchester United, who's coming in, who's going out. What you need at any club, I've never seen a club that did it without having a manager who was really good and control of the situation. And I don't think Solskjaer is in control of the situation, because he wasn't there when they were making the move. Still not there when he's not even mentioned. He's away on his holidays.
Too much politics, it seems, at Manchester United then.
Well, there's nobody leading it, Nathan. You need, who's in charge at Manchester United? Who's buying the players in? It's not Solskjaer.
So it's understandable in a way if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is making comments like that, if it's not his decision over Paul Pogba. So he may well have looked at Paul Pogba's behaviour and thought, we need to get rid of this guy, he's a poisonous influence in the dressing room.
Yeah.
But the ownership have said, no, this guy's too valuable for us. You got to put up with it. So Solskjaer has a decision to make. Do I sit in front of the media and say I'm not happy, or do I sit in front of the media and be thankful for this job?
That's what I think he's done. I think he's playing the game to say, well, I mean, in his position, Nathan, if he says, no, I'm not happy about the Pogba situation, and it's my decision and what I want him to go, right? He could be pulled in and say, what are you talking about? This is not going to happen. Do you want a sack? Do you want to stay here? Do you want to? So they haven't got somebody who's in charge of the situation at Manchester United. And it's a wing and a prayer now. So when you ask me how are they going to do, to be quite honest, I don't know. Because Maguire is a very good player. The players they brought in are very, very good players. Are they going to make the difference without being led? It's possible that it could happen.
Well, we also spent, I don't know how many hours last season talking about Manchester United in midfield. And Ander Herrera was probably one of their better midfielders, even though he's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but he's left the club. It leaves them with no new signings in the middle of midfield, again with Nemanja Matic, Paul Pogba, Fred and Scott McTominay coming through the ranks. Is that a midfield that can push for a top four, that can contend at any great level?
Well, they didn't do it last year. So there's no reason to think, unless Maguire's going to make, and you said the players that they've signed is going to make that much of a difference. I just think it's a wing and a prayer for Manchester United, because you just don't know what's happening. There doesn't seem to be any plan. This is what we're going to do. We got rid of those players. We got him in. We got him in. But it needs a leader to do that. And the leader of the club should be the manager. But I can't see where Solskjaer has led the team in the summer in any way whatsoever. Every time I saw him, he was on his holidays, and there was talk about Ferdinand coming in and director of coaching. There was other players mentioning this and that. There was no mention of Solskjaer saying, I want him, or I want him, or I want him. So therefore, he's not in charge of the situation. He's been given the players to simply say, well, right, there you are. You make the most of what's going on.
He obviously knew that was the role, though, when he took the job.
Well, I'm sure he did, but from the Manchester United sake as a club, it's not ideal. It's not ideal for any club. But the club inside of Manchester United, you want, what they need actually, and it's not there, is a young Ferguson, right? It's not there, because he was one of the great managers. I think Conte I would have appointed Conte, because he saw what he did at Chelsea, won the cup and the league in 2 seasons. The players didn't like him. Tough. And I think I said to you before, all the managers that I ever came across, most of them definitely weren't loved by the players. Do you know what I mean? They respected him. Ole
Gunnar Solskjaer's loved, though.
He's loved. He's loved too much. They see, when he came in, he talked about arm around the players, put a smile on their face. A lot of this was nonsense.
Was that not needed at the time, after the way it had disintegrated under Mourinho?
Yeah, I think it was needed at that time. What he was doing at that time was needed, because the players then want to prove that Mourinho was wrong, and he had behaved very badly towards the players. The players now get together and say, right, we've got to prove these guys were wrong, and they got a good run, and they did get a good run of fixtures as well, Nathan. But once that thing wore out, once the lads proved it was Mourinho's fault, then they went back into their old ways. And Solskjaer was like if you mentioned 92, was it 92 when they won I'd scream. That's go back to Manchester United way, play with a smile on their face. No, this is a lot of crap, And actually, Solskjaer saw Solskjaer a few weeks ago saying, we've got to stop talking about the past. And that's all they ever talked about, the Manchester United way, what we're going to do. They got to go, you brought Carrigan, he brought the couple that were there at that particular time. This is a new game. What Manchester United did in the past, what Liverpool did, it's gone. You've got to make your own history from it, like Ferguson did himself. He had to take over in the Busby. He had to do it himself, which he did. And I can't see Solskjaer leading them in that way. I think he's not in charge of the comings and goings. So who is in charge? Now, that's why I'd answer you, not trying to get out of it. I don't know how they're going to do, because nobody knows how they're going to do. If they hired a young Ferguson, and Ferguson, I want him, and he'd say, well, he knows where he's going, You don't know Manchester United. You just don't know.
Yeah, Harry Maguire, the expectation level around him, probably because of what Virgil van Dijk has done with Liverpool, in that not only is he just an exceptional centre-back in his own right, a feeling that he sort of transformed Liverpool defensively, he improved everybody around him as well, and clearly Liverpool spent big on a goalkeeper also at the same time. Do you look at Harry Maguire from what you've seen with him at Leicester and what you've seen at him with England, that he can be that figure? Because there's been a conveyor belt of centre-halves through Manchester United over the last few years, that no matter who's around him, whether it's Wan-Bissaka at right back, Luke Shaw at left back, Chris Smalling alongside him at centre back, that he just lifts everybody, and that United are a far more solid defensive unit?
I think they'd be more solid, Nathan, but the thing you left out here was the manager. You know, Liverpool had Klopp to do the job, and there's no doubt he's in charge of the situation there. He's leading them, there's no doubt about that. I might say, you know, he's a one-trick pony, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, that he's a very, very good manager, but you can tell he's in charge of it. That's where you start from. If you look at Manchester United, you can talk about Maguire, but where's the manager? That's the point I'm trying to make.
And do you think within that United dressing room, they're almost looking at that Solskjaer situation thinking, this is probably going to last another 6 months? He's not pulling the strings here. He doesn't have the final say.
Yeah, well, players are players. You know what I mean? I'd say if you asked the players at Liverpool, you know, do you like Clough? I'd say I'm not too keen on him. Do you respect him? Oh, yeah. There's a difference between respect and like, and I'm on the great managers in my past. I've dealt with players or talked to players.
Does Klopp not have that sort of bond with his players? Certainly, what you see after the match and the hugs and the affection he has towards them.
Have you ever seen him when he wasn't pleased? When he wouldn't talk to the players? When Henderson passed him by? Do you remember at Old Trafford in a bit of a huff?
Yeah.
He called him back. He said, "What do you think you're doing?" I think they're scared stiff of him, to be quite honest, and quite rightly too. You know, managers, all the great managers I came across with players that I'd asked players about, like I think I might have told you with Peter Broadbent, who's dead now, passed away. He was a terrific player for Wolverhampton, a terrific player. And he played under Stan Cullis, the great manager at Wolves in the old days. And I met him at a do 20 years ago. And I'd always be curious, how do you get on with Cullis? He said, he's the biggest so-and-so I ever met in my life. But he's a great manager.
Yeah.
You know? And like, if you go back to Liverpool's history, the person they loved the most was, what's his name again?
Bill Shankly?
No.
Paisley?
No, down the line, Evans.
Oh, Roy Evans, yeah. Sorry, the players loved the most,
yes. Right. He was the only one that didn't win anything.
Yeah.
Players loved him.
Soft.
Well, he wouldn't be soft. He wouldn't have this aura that these people scared. You know, the managers scared him. You know, they're scared of them. And Klopp has that, and this is what I'm talking about, the Manchester United situation. I'll tell you, if Klopp went to Manchester United now...
You think it would transform the club?
Yes. Yes.
I want to run through a couple of other stories very quickly before we wrap up. Wilfried Zaha, it seems, is now staying at Crystal Palace. They say everything is done, and he'd been one of the most strongly linked players from Arsenal to Tottenham to Everton in the last week, seemed desperate to get Wilfried Zaha. He's now staying, which is brilliant news, you'd imagine, for Roy Hodgson and Crystal Palace, because God knows where they would have been last season without him. Your sense of how this works then over the next few weeks and months with Wilfried Zaha, who clearly was desperate to leave to go to a bigger club, but now has to put the head down and stay?
Well, I think he's some neck.
Why?
Well, it's 2 years of his contract left on 2 years left on his contract.
But is it not a short career, and if Crystal Palace can't match his ambitions?
No, you either have a contract or you don't. It's a two-way go. He's probably on 100 grand. He's 100 grand a week. He said at the start of the season, Arsenal offered 40 million for him, which was ridiculous in this day and age. Oh, please let me go. Arsenal were my team when I was a young player. And is he joking? Right? This is big money, big business. That the owner of the club is going to say, of course we'll do that for you. You obviously want to play for Arsenal, you always wanted to play for them, right? And we're paying you 100 grand a week, and you have 2 years left on your contract. You're joking, right? We're going to do you a big favour because you were a schoolboy. Now, funny enough, did he support Everton as a kid as well? It's a joke. It's the way the players have. Now, I'm all in favour of players being on top now, because in my day it was bad for the players. There's no doubt about that.
Do you think actually then that it's swung around again in favour of the clubs because of the amount of money that's in the Premier League? So if you're Crystal Palace, you finish bottom of the Premier League, you get 125 million guaranteed through the television revenue. That actually, Whereas once upon a time they might have looked at the 40 million or 60 million for Wilfried Zaha and desperately needed that money. Whereas now they're looking at it and going, if Zaha leaves, we're getting relegated.
Well, I'm not talking about the actual plan. I'm talking about the principle of it as a player. You sign a 4-year contract. There's two years to run on. You're getting 100 grand a week, and you're saying to the team, to the club that's employed you, you've agreed to sign the contract. I want to go now. I want to play for the club. It's stupid. It's ridiculous.
Is that not just the modern game?
Well, it is.
But
that doesn't make it right. Now, like I played at a time when you were tied to the club whether you wanted to go or not, which was wrong. And I always have been and would always be in favour of the players. But this is getting ridiculous. I mean, you got the defender at Chelsea, for example, who
David Luiz, who's gone to Arsenal.
Well, he's okay. That's their own decision. No, Koscielny,
Koscielny at Arsenal,
who said, I'm not going on the trip. I've got a year's contract. I'm not going. I want to go. Right? He's 12 months left on his contract, Nathan. I mean, you either honour the contract or you don't honour the contract. If the club, like when Zaha signed his contract, I think 2 years, he was very happy about the situation. You know, he signed, he's got his gut. Now,
does that really frustrate you then when you think back to how players were treated and how much you had to fight to get some rights and to be able to move clubs and to get treated properly, that players now are sort of taking advantage of that?
Oh, they are taking advantage of it. There's no doubt that in my day, not talking about myself, the clubs treated the players very badly, and the players were in a very bad position, right? Now it's got to the stage where the players, in mind, the point I'm making, are behaving very, very badly. And I'd always be in favour of the players, whatever. I'd always be in favour. I don't think they get too much money. I wouldn't be jealous of them. Good luck for them if they can do it. But you have to behave in the right way. You can't dictate to a club like Crystal Palace, who are paying you 100 grand a week, and there's 2 years left on your contract, to say, oh, I want to go to Arsenal now. I want to do this and I want to do that. The shoe's on the other foot in a big way now.
Yeah.
And as an ex-player, I just think it's wrong. Koscielny said, I'm not going on the tour now. I want to go back to France. Well, he wasn't saying that when he was signing his contract. And it's not as if they're signing them for buttons and being badly treated. It's just, I just think it's wrong. I think there has to be some honour in it, that if they sign a contract, they sign a contract for the big money that they're getting. And for Zaha to say, don't stop me going to Arsenal, like it's been my schoolboy club, a load of rubbish. Now Everton, he wants to go to Everton now, I think, or some other club, anything but Palace, but it's still paying him 100 grand a week.
Yeah, well, I think he's staying at Palace at this stage, it seems, certainly after the January transfer window.
I think the owner of Palace is quite a hard nut himself. I'd say he'd be right. I'd say, there's no way you're leaving. We're paying you every week and you're coming to play for us. And that's it.
Just before we wrap up, and you will of course be with us every Thursday at 7:30 throughout the Premier League season, what are you looking forward to most this season?
Well, I think the City, Liverpool will be fascinating again. And unfortunately, like again, we don't know what Manchester United are going to do. It looks like Chelsea are in a certain situation, and I don't think there's going to be too much expected from them. Spurs, not good from what we heard last week, what Pochettino was saying. You take my name off as manager. I want to be the coach now, because he obviously didn't get his own way in his influence in the transfer window. Because I read last week there was Levy and two others, I can't remember their names now, and him. So he was the fourth choice. And what he's done for the club, I would have thought that Levy would say, right, okay, what do you want next? Hasn't been the case. So what he's saying, in effect, whatever happens now with these players, I haven't got the decision to bring the players in that I want. So I'm not taking the blame for that, for other people's decisions. So what he's saying, I want to be the coach now, because I haven't had my say in the transfer market.
Yeah.
Because no matter who's had the say, whether the director of football, and that, if the team is not doing well, Nathan, the manager gets the blame. And what he's saying is,
I'm not the manager.
I'm the manager.
Coach.
So don't start blaming me on the players that they're bringing in, because obviously he's not in control and hasn't been in control of the players that they want to bring in. Well, and I think that's wrong, considering the job that he's done at the club.